Welcome, everyone, to the Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series, where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Seldin, and today's guest is Aleksandra Plazinic, PhD. Aleksandra Plazinic is a communication coach, speaker, and university lecturer dedicated to helping executive women overcome imposter syndrome and speak with confidence, clarity, and authenticity. With a PhD in strategic management and experience working in the United Nations, European Commission, and top business schools across Europe, Aleksandra brings a global perspective to communication and leadership. Her holistic approach blends NLP, emotional healing, and practical presentation skills to help clients boost their executive presence and thrive in high-stake environments. Through keynotes, workshops, and private coaching, she empowers women in tech and engineering to speak up, lead with confidence, and inspire change. So welcome.
Thank you.
So excited to have you here.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, of course. And I'm very excited to speak about how our leaders find their voices. And the voice really inspires how they build influence, how they speak with authority, how they inspire action in their teams. And so I think this is a super important topic to share with everybody. So I really appreciate being here to do that.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely agree, especially working with a lot of women. That's quite a struggle.
Yeah. So let's start. We heard in your intro, one thing that I think stood out to me was the word authenticity. And that kind of gets me to my first question of, as leaders try to find their voice, I think authenticity matters a ton. So in your experience between yourself and with others, what does that process look like, finding your own voice? And how do you ensure once you find it is your authentic voice and not one that you just think everybody wants to hear?
That's a good one. Yes, it is a topic that I'm very fond of. And I think it's very important, not just with the leaders, but with everybody in the corporate world. And then as well in your private life, you should very much nurture the authenticity. With my journey as well, it was not easy because you always, when you start, you really want to look up to somebody and you want to see how is everything done, especially in the professional world, and maybe take on someone else's style. But for me, let's say the game changer was many years ago when I started in this journey, really looking into myself more and getting to myself more. I remember actually one of the exercises that I still do with my clients, and that is really to get to know yourself. That means you have to list all of your achievements. So everything that you've done in your life, literally from elementary school, whatever awards that you won, whatever made you feel proud, if you graduated from university, the first job that you get, because we always forget actually all of those achievements and small accomplishments. This is one of the ways that we build our confidence, that we remember the challenges that we've been through. And I remember the first time when I listed all of my achievements, I was literally in sweat because it was so hard for me to acknowledge that and to, let's say, talk about it, because for me, it looked like it was bragging. So afterwards, it took me a while really to embody all of those achievements, to really realize that they're all mine. I earned them. I worked hard for that. There were a lot of challenges, a lot of issues that I had to overcome. So the first step is really to recognize who you are, what do you bring in, and then embody, really to know, okay, this is me, this is who I am. I still sometimes, when people say, when you pronounce my PhD or when they say doctor, I'm like, okay, is this really me? But I remember, actually it is, yes, it is me. It took me a while, really. And I think authenticity really starts from there, knowing who you are, what do you bring. You don't have to brag about it, but just realizing that it becomes part of you. Literally, sometimes it is just taking this list in paper and just like bringing it back to your body, really, that it is yours. This is who you are. And then really start from there. So this is where you share actually your message from the heart, who you are. You don't have to be somebody else.
That's a really cool activity. And I'm sure in doing that and having that list in front of you, it really counteracts any of that imposter syndrome that you may be feeling at the same time.
Definitely. This is something as well that feeds into that. So a lot of women that I work with, still me, sometimes I feel my imposter syndrome coming back, in not in all situations, but in some, that you think you're not good enough, or maybe that you're not qualified enough, or that you need to work more, or that you doubt your own professionalism or your own knowledge or skills.
Yeah.
So it is the exercise that helps with overcoming imposter syndrome. What I've seen, many achievers, many overachievers are actually struggling with that. So I haven't seen a lot of people who haven't done much, let's say in their professional life or personal life, they don't really struggle with imposter syndrome. So I think it's very common that most people who are very successful and they achieved a lot, they struggle with imposter syndrome. Just as an encouragement, you're not alone, and everybody has some of the characteristics of imposter syndrome.
That's why I like that activity that you mentioned so much, because I myself have dealt with imposter syndrome, and a lot of the people that I work with do as well. I feel like your high achievers are very hard on themselves and always think that they could do more, and they don't do exactly what you said. They don't stop and pause and reflect on everything they've accomplished. They focus so much on what they haven't accomplished yet. And I feel like that just feeds into that imposter syndrome and kind of starts hiding away that authenticity and all of the things that you've done, because you're so focused on what the next thing is instead of what you have done.
Exactly. Yes. It is one of the characteristics of overachievers. You always are chasing another goal, another
Right.
achievement, and planning for the future. Sometimes it's never enough. We have this kind of a mindset because we never stop to reflect and see how much we've
Right.
done. So I'm not saying that you should just look into your past achievements, but it has to be a very good balance, not just being in this race. So how do I become more and what I need to do more, but to reflect and acknowledge yourself. So this is the first start. Sometimes, even though we get a lot of acknowledgement from the external environment, we tend not to believe it. We think that maybe people are just praising us for whatever the reasons or other benefits, because really nobody can really tell you something about yourself unless you embody that, unless you are secure in that.
Exactly. It's kind of like that loving yourself before you can love someone else type mindset. You have to be able to really embody that.
True, because in the end, when we talk about leadership and when we talk about spreading the message, you cannot give something that you don't have or that
Right.
you haven't cultivated. So it is very different if you know something on a piece of information, let's say on a very superficial level, than really embodying it and having it within your body, your emotions. And then you can really project and you can really influence and positively impact the people around you.
I love that. So if people do that, they make this list, they embody what they've done and their confidence, and they become this authentic self. Their voice is now their authentic self. Their next step, it seems like, is to figure out how they can then influence others and get others to follow their lead. Aside from that authenticity, what else have you seen people be able to do that makes others want to follow their lead?
We often forget as well that communication, so connecting to other people, is actually communication is the content. So what we share, what kind of information do we share? But second part is connection. It's great that, for instance, you're very knowledgeable in your field and you have a lot of content to share. But then the other part is always your audience. So
Right.
who are you talking to? And I teach as well business, and we talk a lot about our audience, about our target audience, about target customers. And I think it's the same in your professional or personal life, because there is a certain benefit that the other person is getting from this kind of a relationship or this communication. And this is something that we should cultivate and be aware of. So it is not just about, okay, me sharing some information, but what does it do for the other person? Because we are always thinking about that subconsciously sometimes. So what is in it for me? In a sense, what is the benefit, either emotional or intellectual, or let's say amusement or entertainment, education, and so on. And I think the great leaders really, when they make the impact, they really care about each other. They care about their audience. So who are they sharing information to? So that very much differs if you, let's say, want to influence your team, or if you're at the conference, or if you're trying to connect more to your customers or to your clients or partners. So we have to really be aware of our audience. What are the needs? What are the desires, the wishes? I'm not saying that to please them, but to really connect and to be able to have this balance, right? To sharing your information, but not over pleasing your audience. So to keep this genuine connection.
So, Aleksandra, that point is so spot on. I want to talk a little bit more about that, because I find that same thing in many of the ways that my normal day-to-day is my audience, my team, whoever I talk with. There are things that I assume and project that I think they want to hear, I think they want the approach to be, but my intent versus how it impacts them is very different sometimes. So what are some of the best ways you've seen that people can go understand what those wants and needs and desires of their audience are, so their message does get across and their approach is effective, as opposed to I'm standing up there doing what I need to do and it's just falling flat because it's not how my audience wants to receive it?
Exactly. Yes. The first step is get to know your audience. So you have to do research. So the preparation is a big part of any communication. So before any meeting or before a conference or PowerPoint presentation, really research who will be sitting there, who are these people, what they're interested in, or what kind of communication appeals to them. Is it more entertaining, or is it, let's say, a long content? Is it short content? Or if you need to dig deeper in some of the information. So to answer that question is, what's in it for me? This is a subconscious question that every person in your audience will be asking themselves, right, consciously or unconsciously. That is the way, the more you answer that actually in your presentation, the more they will be pleased and the more they will be satisfied with, the more you can connect and make the positive impact. To add on that, I find out there are 4 important questions that you can answer when actually preparing your content. These 4 questions are powerful because they really appeal to different communication styles of your audience and different learning profiles, because we're not learning in the same ways. And if you have even 5 people, they can be very different. Some people, they want to know more of the concepts, of the theories, definitions. They want to dig deeper more into some tools, techniques, strategies. They're more hands-on learners. And then you have people who are always doubting what you say, and they're always like, okay, this is great concept, I know that applies to that case, but what if something else happens? How do I handle this? So what I wanted to share is actually this, it's called the format technique. So you have 4 questions that you can answer in your content. So first one is what? So that means you provide a certain concept, theory, because 20% actually of people in your audience in general, they're interested in what are the definitions, what is the concept, they want to know more about it. The second question is why. This is 25% of the learners, they want to know why is that important for them? Why are we even talking about it? What is the greater purpose of it? And when I see my students, they want to answer this question, why is that important to me? Why are we even talking about this concept? Then you have the doubting one. So what is that? That is what if. So what if this happens? What if that does not apply? This would be answering, let's say, some different examples that you can think about. So really suiting them in their doubting aspect. And the last one is how. This appeals to your audience, that they want to know the tools, the techniques, the strategies. So how do they apply a certain concept, let's say in their professional life or in their personal life, whatever the topic is. So once you answer all of that, I think you covered really 100% of your audience. And what is important, you already answered all of the questions that they had in the back of their minds.
Do you see those percentages change based on, I'd say, the culture or the environment of the people that you're teaching this to? And I ask the question because I feel as an American, we want to know why a lot before we do anything. And that's always been beaten into my head, where we've had coworkers in Asia and coworkers in Europe. And what we'll hear is in Asia, people are told to do something, or this is the way things are, and they'll just go do it because they believe it. In the US, we question everything.
Yes, that's a good point. I've noticed it with different audiences, especially with the students coming from Asia, Europe, US. With the new generation, I've noticed that there is a lot of why. So they really want to have the hands-on. They want to have the techniques, the tools, something that they can do immediately. They're not very interested that much in the what. So the concept, okay, maybe if you give just one definition, so everything is clear in the concept, but it's more why. Why does that matter to me, or how I can use it in a more hands-on approach. Of course, I think that depends a lot on the context. With academia or with the financial audience, I've noticed it's more about what. So it's more about definitions, concepts. You really dig deeper into that. Yes, with the others, especially if you're talking about motivation, inspiration, it is really why and how.
It's really great because that just then comes full circle again to knowing your audience, right? Because obviously those four questions will
Exactly.
build a foundation, but knowing where your audience will focus on those four questions is very important as you build that presentation, that communication.
Yes, and you can test it. And once you start with your presentation, you will see with the connection with your audience and with this interaction, whether you should dig more deeper into why or how, or you should just make, I don't know, your what a little bit shorter and then keep on.
So, on the topic of communication still, how have you seen a leader's approach to communication either positively or negatively impact the culture of the team that they're building?
What I like to think of the leaders, I always think this line lead by example. Part of the communication is not just what you say, it's how you say it. And more important is what is your behavior. So, coming back to authenticity, you have to have all of this aligned what you say, how you say it, and then proven by your behavior. This is that we can talk about authentic leaders. All of it is very important, but what resonates the most with people is the behavior. So let's say if you have the culture that you're not working overtime, so that goes right for the leaders or that goes for adjusting the behaviors of the other employees or the team members. I had a friend actually who was working very hard and he's that kind of a person and he was sending emails at 2 a.m.,
Oh
3
my
a.m. because
God.
I couldn't sleep. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do some job. And I realized that actually creates a culture. One person does it. And his manager was a very smart person. And he told him, please do not do that. I know you're very hardworking, because he realized really that is the impact on the culture. So if you actually encourage, that means it goes without saying that everybody should do that, even though it's not in the rules, but that would just go beyond to the behavior of everybody. And this is how you create the culture. I think that impact of a leader is really crucial,
Right.
either adjusting your own behavior, which is important because people are leading, people are following what you do, and noticing some of these behaviors towards the others and adjusting them in the culture that you want to cultivate.
I think that is so important, and people don't realize that enough that their behaviors really impact how other people think and see things from a psychological
Mhm.
side. They think, this is just me, this is my style, they don't have to do this. But
Right.
they will still question it. And I gave some people in my team in the past feedback on people that sent emails over the weekend. And we're all tied to technology now. So I have my email on my phone. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, while I'm trying to spend time with my kids, if I see an email come up, that shifts my mindset from outside of work to inside work mindset. And even if I don't read it, or even if I look at it quickly and then I say I'm not going to deal with it till Monday, I'm now thinking about work. And that
Exactly.
has now
Mhm.
impacted me. And that's what we do. Even if our intention isn't to do, that's what naturally happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is subconscious. I had it when I was working part of the previous university. We were asked not to send emails over the weekend, even
Mhm.
though you can schedule it so it's delivered on Monday. But
Right.
still, for some people, you can see it when it was sent. So
Hmm.
for some people, it creates anxiety that they haven't done something or that was something pending. So you really have to be aware of how your communication impacts the others, because it is something that we think what is interpretation from our side, but then
Yeah.
we always have the other person or our audience, how that impacts others.
Yeah, and so many people look to us who have been in leadership for a while as the people they try to mimic at least some of the behaviors from. Like you said, you have newer
Mm.
people come in and they're going to look at leaders, but have to build in their own authenticity as they build their style. But if I've got somebody who's just out of school, who's a new leader, and they see me sending emails over the weekend, sending them late at night, they're going to think that's what the normal is. And then we're starting them off on the wrong foot just from the beginning.
Exactly. Yes, because it is very expected for the people who just come into one organization. Of course, you're
Mhm.
looking to the reference point, how you should behave, what are the unwritten rules or unsaid rules. And as humans, we like to adapt. And if you're coming just from the school, you want to be part of the team.
And if you see things that mimic success in your eyes, that's what you're going to do. And if you have a leader who is viewed as successful and these are the activities that they do, you're going to
Mm.
think that's what's needed to be successful.
Exactly. Yes. for everybody to be aware, as leaders, people do look up to you. And even though if it's not that obvious to you, but still, this is a great impact that you make.
Yeah. People are always watching. I think that's what people don't always realize, but they are always watching, whether it seems like it or not. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if we can stick with communication, how do people build their communication style to help motivate people both short term and long term and keep everybody engaged and energized to do what we need to do as a team?
With the communication, we always start with the goal. What is it that you want to achieve? That's why that separates if you want to do something short term or long term. We always have to have what is the desired result of this communication. Okay, if I want to motivate my team or inspire them, just let's say for one action or to keep them in a good mood, my communication will be very different than if I want to do it in a long term. And the reason for that is because when we set the objective, or even what is deeper, the purpose, which I think it will affect the team more long term, this is like an invisible thread in our communication. It leads us not just okay what we want to say, but it leads our emotions, it leads our body posture, the whole energy. And this is something, let's say, invisible. It's part of actually our subconscious that really impacts the team. So usually, okay, if you want to motivate somebody for one-time action, then your communication is right, more energetic, more inspiring, but it is short term. So maybe they will walk out and be inspired, but then one-time action and that's it. You don't have this long term. With the long term, you have to then dig deeper in your audience to see what they want, what is their motivation, what are their desires, deeply answer this why. So why is that important for them? So they have the sense of purpose. You have to translate that to your communication because people will stick longer. They have their purpose and this is embedded in and aligned. What is it that they want to do in their benefits, in their interest? What I like to see the communication, it is a common area. So it's not just a lot of leaders, a lot of managers, they give a lot of instructions, they request a lot of information, but it is the way how you frame it, how you frame it in your mind. So am I just giving the instructions, we should do this, or this is the way, or this is a common approach? And actually starting from yourself, asking these questions and framing it in a right way, then you differently impact your audience, your team, and they say committed to your goals.
I think that distinction is so important because everybody, I think, finds their style and then tries to do everything the same way. And just like you said, having communication for a short-term goal versus a long-term goal and how to motivate people are very different depending on if it's a one-time thing we're asking for now or if it's something that we're creating a vision and a purpose for longer term.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. You should recognize how people we're motivated in different ways. So working in a team, some people are more motivated with the financial incentives. For the others, it doesn't matter. They're actually more motivated with non-financial incentives. So more with the status, maybe more responsibility, teamwork, communication, empathy that they feel from the leaders. So you should acknowledge these elements of the motivation. So we're not the same. And the more you can appeal to different personalities within your team, then the more you can have the cohesion of this team that they can really work in the long run and have a change that you want.
It all comes back to knowing your audience, knowing what they value.
Exactly.
So
Always.
full circle. Yeah.
Yes,
Good.
definitely. It is about knowing your audience and it's really about creating this connection because we're
Right.
people and we really want to be connected. We want to feel that we are understood, and especially with the conflicts at the workplace or in personal life. So it's not about actually being right. A lot of people, they don't have to win in an argument. That is not the main point. The main point is they want the other person to understand their view. The leader to understand, okay, I'm working hard, I'm having this issue. That is connection and empathy that I think today most of the employees would put on a very high top of the list for their managers or in the personal life, just to feel that you understand my point of view and my perspective or how do I feel. So to be able to be in your shoes and not to have this just rooted in my own mindset or my own opinion and perspective.
Right. People don't always have to agree, but as long as they feel heard and it seems like we're trying to understand their perspective, it means a lot.
Exactly. And this is what people feel, of course, that is authenticity again. So coming back to the connection, really empathy, which is, I would say, part of the communication. You cannot have the genuine communication if you are not connecting with the other person on a very genuine empathic level. So
Right.
it's almost impossible. You can have the communication, but it won't be effective one. So that is a big difference.
That's right. Perfect. Thank you so much for everything, Aleksandra Plazinic, PhD. If you want to look her up, I'll have all the information in both the YouTube video and on the normal Apple podcast and Spotify and everything with all of her information so you can connect with her. I know she's on LinkedIn and you can definitely ask questions and connect and get a lot more inspiration aside from what you just got from watching and listening to this. But in order to find this, you can like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast that you can find on all podcast platforms. You can subscribe to my Instagram at Leading Quarters, our YouTube page at Leading Quarters, and then you can email me with any questions or ideas you have for future episodes at leadingquarters@gmail.com. And in the off chance that you want to get a hold of Aleksandra and you can't get there through any of the links, email me and we'll get you in touch. But I know I leave this conversation extremely inspired by everything that you shared, and I just encourage my team to look you up, contact you, see what you're posting and bringing, because there's a lot more inspiration left to be had.
Great. Thank you so much, Josh, for having me. It was great talking to you and having this exchange of really good information and tips.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.